My name's Mary May. I live in Mells. I've lived here since I'm 7. I moved here because my dad came to work on a local farm. We moved into a house in New Street, which is just behind me. It was a very creepy house. I hadn't realised how creepy until I got older. Then we moved within the village to another house, but unfortunately my dad died. It was a tied cottage, so we had to move out. It was awful when Dad died. It sort of pulls your life apart, you know. But time went on and we had to move again because it was a tied cottage. I have 2 older brothers. They became friends with Terry. I didn't like Terry. But he grew on me. The first thing he ever gave me was a rabbit, and this rabbit was called Bunty, and he brought it one day, and I thought it was the most lovely thing to do, to give me this rabbit. Later on in years, he told me he only gave it to me because it used to keep escaping and it was such a nuisance. But we fell in love. The very first time I decided I really liked Terry was in this pub where we are now. It was New Year's Eve, and I got into the bar, and he was playing darts. And he said, if you win the darts for me, if you play darts with me and you win, I'll buy you a drink. And the popular drink was brandy and baby sham. And I won the darts. And he said, would you like a drink? And I said, yeah, I'd have a brandy and baby sham. And I remember his face, even now, you know. And then we went on down to the barn, which is a local village hall, to the New Year's Eve dance. And the rule was I was allowed to go to the dance, but I had to go with my brothers. I wasn't allowed to go home with Terry, or anybody else. My brothers had to take me home. And that's how it started, really. I worked in Boots, he worked in Curry's, so I used to wait for the bus, and he'd come past in his Curry's van and pick me up. We got married in the local village church. We lived in Frome for a very short time in a really grotty little flat. And then the flat in the rectory became vacant. Terry's mum was the housekeeper. And the rent was £5 a month plus Sunday dinner. You had to cook the vicar Sunday dinner. And obviously being young, I was really scared about cooking the vicar the Sunday dinner. The Sunday dinner often went badly. I remember one particular time when he brought these ducks up and they were peppered with shot, and I didn't know what to do with them. I had no idea how to deal with these ducks. But I remember picking out all the shot and worrying that it was all gone. And it wasn't all gone, it was still there. But he was very lovely. He just picked them out and put them on the side of the plate. Yeah. He had lots of interesting guests, this vicar. He was a bachelor. He'd been a missionary. And he also had malaria, so he was quite eccentric. And he'd forget to get up for church and things like that. And we say that Terry taught the vicar how to drink beer, and the vicar taught us how to play chess. It was a lovely place to live. When we moved after the rectory, we moved into Longfield. We were lucky enough to get a house there, and then our son Tim came along. That was in 1977, and he was closely followed by Abigail, our daughter, in 1980. I decided to be a stay-at-home mum, and I'm really pleased I did because they're only little for a little time. And then I started to work at the local school. I was a dinner lady, and then I progressed on to the nursery. I was a nursery teacher there for some time. When the children got older, I decided I wanted to do something a bit more exciting, and I got involved with the local quarries. There's a huge quarrying area here, and so I became an education officer for the local quarries, which was really, really interesting. I'd have 5-year-olds one day and geologists the next day. So you really had to have your brain about you. I really enjoyed it. It was really, really good, really lovely job. I was also a community artist for the local council. I went out into different places, taking different crafts and teaching people to make stained glass, painted glass and copper work. And everything was going along smoothly. The children went to school locally, then they went into Frome, which was not too far away, so it was all good. But then, unfortunately, Terry became ill. So I tried to carry on working, but I sort of lost my concentration a bit. And then I got tripped over by the dog and broke my leg very, very badly, broke my ankle very badly, and I had to have plates and all sorts of things put into it. And that was the final straw then. I realised that I had to stay home with Terry. I wanted to be with Terry. Terry had been diagnosed with prostate cancer, but by the time they'd discovered it, it was too late. It already escaped into his spine. He was a big, tall chap, and he had a very heavy job. He worked for a Granada TV rental at the time. And they blamed it on carrying televisions around. So they didn't do anything about it. But unfortunately, when the medication stopped, the sciatica medication stopped working, and they investigated further, this was it. It was this prostate cancer. Our lives kind of fell apart. We didn't tell the children that it was terminal at the time. We just kept it to ourselves. When Terry was diagnosed in 2009, they were 30, 32, that sort of around that kind of age. an important time for them, sort of on their careers and things like that. So they were very, very hard hit by Terry's diagnosis. He was very ill at times. Some of the time, we still managed to enjoy ourselves. We went off on holidays. We went wonderful times in Barcelona. It's wonderful, wonderful times. And we'd nip off to Cornwall and Devon and things. But other times, he was too poorly to do anything, just stay at home. It was absolutely awful. And, well, it's kind of, you think you're prepared for people to be ill, or prepared for bad news, but when it actually happens to you, you just can't take in how it's so devastating, you know. But luckily, I had the children, Tim and Abigail. They were very, very supportive, even though they were breaking their hearts too, and their other halves. And I've got brothers that live close, and my sister-in-laws were great. And friends come out of the woodwork. You know, local friends were around a lot of the time, but friends really came out of the woodwork and really helped. And I don't know what I'd have done without these friends. And Mells was great. Mells really, really sort of wrapped itself around us. I think if you lived in a big city, I don't know, because I've only ever lived in Mells, but I feel if you lived in a big city and you were, you might feel very differently about, you know, I don't think you'd get the same support. So, yeah, these friends would appear with dinner on plates, you know, saying, here, we made this for you, and even if you didn't want it, it was there, you know. And, well, anyway, things got worse and worse and worse and worse. And the oncology department was saying, oh, you need to get hospice involved. And I said, no, I don't need a hospice. I'm big and strong. We resisted it for a very long time. With retrospect, that was a really bad thing to do, because the minute the hospice got involved, they made it okay to be ill, okay to talk about dying, okay to address it rather than just be the elephant in the corner. So Dorothy House were absolutely brilliant, as were Macmillan. And we called in all the support. I didn't need any support, I thought, but you really do, and you should take it. Then in October 2014, he got really, really poorly, started falling over and things like that. And we knew it was like going to come to the end. Anyway, when he died, my world fell apart. My children's world fell apart. Tim and Abigail fell apart. Everything imploded. It was absolutely awful. Nothing can prepare you for it. I didn't know who I was anymore. Your confidence just goes totally out of the window. You constantly find yourself checking things, you know. You just don't know where to go, what to be, or anything really. I just can't describe how dreadful it was. And I thought the end of the world had come. And I didn't know how to move forward. I didn't know how to do each day, let alone look forward into life. But gradually, over months and months and months, which is incredibly hard, gradually over those months, you cry and you sleep and you cry and you just get on with day-to-day stuff, not thinking about anything else. You know, you can only look back. You can't look forward. You can only look back and cry your eyes out. And so the only way I managed to do it was make myself very, very, very busy. I couldn't be at home. There was no way I could be at home. Because if I would be at home, I would just curl up on the sofa and cry myself to sleep. And that's no good, because you've got to swim. You can't sink. If you've loved somebody as much as I love Terry, if you sank, you'd fail them. So you have to swim. I floundered a lot on the way, but it was all the help and support of the village and all these friends that really, really, really helped. Terry had to give up work in 2010, which he was obviously upset about. But he used to wind the church clock. He absolutely adored that church clock. Crazy thing to say, but he'd take people up there regularly, and he was really, really enthusiastic about it. He had books about it. And him and another guy called Francis, who was also one of the clock winders, used to get me really excited. They'd go off and look at clocks and things, you know. And so he had to give up winding the clock, which was a huge blow. Terry used to write poems. When he got poorly, he wrote more and more poems. And he wrote this one particular one about the clock. It's called The Clock Winder. Anyway, one day, this particular person phoned me and he said, I want to show you something. And I went to this carver's studio, and there was this poem written on this wonderful piece of oak, and it was so beautifully done, you know. And it was copied word for Terry. There's an apostrophe in the wrong place. The poem's signed by Taj, not by Terry. Taj was his nickname. He was called Taj because when he was little, his mum was overprotective and would make him wear bobble hats and scarves and things. And they'd been learning about the Taj Mahal at school, and somebody said he looked like the Taj Mahal. And one of the things I've done since Terry died is I have fundraised quite a lot. I've fundraised for the local hospice and the Macmillan and for Prostate Cancer UK. So we decided we'd have a Macmillan tea party where we'd launch this poem. And I belonged to the local choir, so I had a tune in my head. So I sang it down the mobile phone to the choir leader. And she listened to it. She wrote the music for it. So it was a sort of joint effort, really.
The clock winder climbs up the stairs of the tower to the sound of the chimes as he enters the clock room, to the sound of the clock with the whir of the cogs and the deep tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. He opens the door at the back of the clock and takes out the handle and fits in the lock. He turns the handle slowly to wind up the weights, being careful not to make any mistakes. Every day of the year, the clock winder climbs up the stairs of the tower to the sound of the chimes as he enters the clock room, to the sound of the clock with the whir of the cogs and the deep tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. He changes the tune of the chimes for the day and sits back and waits for the chimes to play. He climbs down the tower and unlocks the big door, replaces the key and walks home once more. Every day of the year, the clock winder climbs up the stairs of the tower to the sound of the chimes as he enters the clock room, to the sound of the clock with the whir of the cogs and the deep tick-tock, 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 tick-tock.
All of this story would have been so much harder had I not had Mells people and friends and the community of the village. The community has changed from when I was little. It's a very different community now to what it was then, but it is still here. And without the community and without the love of Tim and Abigail, and I just like to reinforce I love them so much, but without the love of all the people around and all those hugs and cuddles and odd remarks and pinches on the arm, you know, I don't know how we would have survived. And now I can begin to look back with joy now. I used to just look back with sadness, but I can look back with joy now. But we can also begin to look into the future. So I thought things would never get better, but they do. I still miss him. I still miss him like crazy every day. But I can look forward now.